manufactured properly, maybe got some moisture in it, but fireworks do have the tendency to have mishaps. So we don't expect them to work correctly all the time, and that's why we make sure that we're safe and we take precautions in case something does go wrong with them.
What do you mean a mishap? You mean the damn thing could go off in flight? If it's coming in the ship or it's coming in a plane, it could just go off? What does this mean?
So no, I wouldn't say not in transportation, just in its final use. Like when the end user lights it, it may not do what it's intended to do. During transportation, and almost all fireworks are transported via ship, nothing's going to be in an airplane, and there's very low risk during transportation of anything happening. The heat's not going to cause any issues unless there's a spontaneous fire aboard the ship that happens to catch any of the containers on fire. The transportation is fairly safe with fireworks across the country and across the world.
What about a crash?
A crash of the ship, yeah, that could definitely cause an issue. And the same thing on the road. The transportation of fireworks on the road is regulated by the Department of Transportation, and it's very heavily regulated, which is why it's hard to get into the industry, because it's so hard to maneuver around all the laws and everything like that. But if you do it correctly and you keep everyone safe, it could be a very profitable business.
Where does it come from? I know China, but China's a big place. Where are these places? Where are they?
So there's one province in China in particular. I believe the pronunciation is called the Lulang province, and most of all of the fireworks retail and professional come from that region. That's where all the black powder's made, which is the primary ingredient in fireworks, and thus that's where all the final products are put together and then shipped all around the world.
Well, does anything ever go kaflooey? Does it ever go wrong, something?
In the end displays, once they get taken to the final municipality and you're using them in their final circumstance, yes, you could have an issue that arises, but like we've been talking, typically in transportation, there's no issues. But when you're using them, you could have, since so many hundreds and tens of thousands are made in a mass production level, there could be issues with a few of them, which is why we have very particular safety distances and audience recommendations of exactly where the people and the spectators need to be to keep them safe.
Okay, you're saying it very quickly because you're a professional. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. So if this stuff is flammable and can go off in a plane or go off in a car or go off anywhere, if it's got some crankiness in it, how do you protect it or your people?
Well, it doesn't have necessarily a crankiness to it, and it doesn't go off spontaneously. It would need an ignition source. So you would need a flame. If spontaneously, maybe you had a lightning strike, that could cause an issue, which is something beyond our control, an act of God. But typically the firework itself will not spontaneously ignite in transportation unless there is another form, an accident or some form of fire that gets near it.
It's fire that does it? You mean a cigar or a cigarette couldn't do it?
No, a cigar and a cigarette does have an ember and a flame. So, yes, if that got close enough, it could cause an issue that could cause them to ignite.
Okay, we're all getting firework crazy because in another 20 seconds, we're all going to be doing fireworks. What is a fireworks? What's it made of? We really know.
So the main component in fireworks are black powder. It's a mixture of sulfur, charcoal, and potassium nitrate. And when they all mix together, they create a sort of powder that burns not fast like a gunpowder will and not smokeless, but it creates just what we need to create the fire in the sky to create the light. And when that black powder is mixed with other coloring agents like heavy metals, that's what creates the colors in the sky. So what you do is you take the black powder and you encase it in different stuff. Like you might put it in a cardboard tube and then make a rocket out of it. Or you could put it inside of a round ball and make an aerial shell out of it. So black powder is the primary component in fireworks. It just depends on what you do with it afterwards to make the display with it.
Where could you make it? Why necessarily? I know it's cheaper. I understand that. But why in China? Why isn't it made here in downtown Flushing or someplace?
The regulations on manufacturing explosives, I think, would be too expensive to do on a large-scale level. like the need for the retail bases for the 4th of July. There's just so many containers and so many ships that come in to feed the growing demand of the 4th of July consumers. I don't think that we'd be able to do that economically with all the regulations that we have in place for manufacturing explosives in the United States.
So if you're buying this stuff, again, any question may sound stupid, but I really have no knowledge whatsoever. Do you buy it by the ton, by the gross, by the piece? How does it, is it $11 to get a plane load? How does it work?
So typically it's bought by the container load. And when you think of a container, think of a shipping container like you see at the port or on the back of a big truck going down the highway. Each container could vary. Typically a container, depending on whether it's a retail container of fireworks or a display container, it could be anywhere between $30,000 and $60,000 of fireworks per container. And then it could be another $20,000 to $30,000 just to ship it from China over to America. The shipping cost has gone up recently. It might be coming down, hopefully, within the next year or so, but that's the average cost these days.
Nothing's coming down. So, did anything in all your years, Patrick, anything ever go wrong? Anything light up or backfire or louse up something?
Absolutely. I'm not doing too many aerial displays anymore because that's where the danger is. I do more theatrical and stage pyrotechnics, but when I was doing the larger 4th of July displays, you have what's called a low break or a misfire or hang fire where a shell could break low, or it could even break in the rack itself that it's meant to fire out of. So when that happens, the shell detonates in the rack, it explodes the rack, and it sends the wood, the plastic, and everything that rack is made of flying everywhere. So if you're hand firing the shells and you happen to be a few feet away from it, that could cause an issue. People have definitely gotten injured or worse from instances like that. We like to fire electronically, so we set everything up ahead of time, and then we just press a few buttons, and we could be a few hundred feet away when the displays are going on, which makes it a lot safer for our technicians and the crew.
How do you test it? Where do you test it? So how do you know this stuff is good or it's going to work?
Typically, the testing gets done before it comes from China. Like I said, the agents that we work with and owners of the companies will go over to China, or the agents are already there working on our behalf and making sure that we're taking cases out randomly and trying 1 or 2 products from each one to make sure that before we even import them, they meet our standards.
Are you going to watch a firework display on July 4th?
Yes, I am fortunate enough where I will be licensing and working one of the firework displays locally in my area, so I'll be able to watch it with my family.
So a guy like you who's in a business like this, I mean, I have no problem here. I will sit somewhere, I will have a sandwich, but you're right there on the field. Has anything ever happened to you? Did you ever get in a problem with it?
Well, there's constant fires that will occur just because the fireworks are made to burn up in the sky, but sometimes they hang a little bit longer than they should, and you'll have a star that comes down to the ground. So we do have fires that could come up in summer. It's always very dry, so that's an issue. Low breaks, like I said, where a shell will go up only a few feet out of the tube and then break. So yes, there definitely have been issues over the years, but we try to be as safe as we can to overcome them.
I don't know where this all started. Do you remember how fireworks began to celebrate July 4th?
To celebrate July 4th, I would just say fireworks were big in Europe in the 15th and 16th century. They used it to celebrate certain things. That was when the celebration of fireworks, the actual traditional aerial displays in Italy became popular. And then once we started colonizing America, they were brought over here, and then after our independence was celebrated, that's when we really started using fireworks on that day annually to really mark that celebration.
So what stuff or places have you done that we would know?
I've done a lot of concerts recently, so right now what I'm into is doing a lot of the stage stuff. So I work in a lot of stadiums doing big events for like Pink and Ed Sheeran, setting up fireworks for them. But I've also done a lot of fireworks around the area for Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Kirby Park. I do some things in New York City. But I own a retail store now, so my passion is in educating my customers that come into my fireworks store about the safety and what can be used and what cannot be used legally in the States, just to keep everyone on the consumer level safe.
What's the store? I don't know. I didn't know you had a store. Where? What? What do you do in that store?
So it's in New Jersey. It's called Backyard Heroes Fireworks. It's a retail fireworks store. We sell safe and sane fireworks like fountains, sparklers, novelties, smoke. We have a huge line of gender reveal products, which is very popular now. We're one of the only ones around. We're closest to New York City. We're the closest store to New York City. So we just like to keep the public informed on what's legal, what's safe, and let everyone have a good time with fireworks, because that's what we really love to do.
Okay. Can you give me a story where something went awry, or can you give me any story about your firework experience?
Definitely. So one of the common fireworks people like to use around the 4th of July will be an aerial cake, where you light the device with a lighter. It has multiple reports or shots that will go up in the air before the cake concludes. Sometimes, though, the cake could tip over sideways, in which case it's multiple reports over the case of 20 or 30 seconds will shoot out, and this cake will spin every time it shoots. So you'll have basically a bomb coming in every direction every few seconds, and you never know where it's going to land, where it's going to explode. So stuff like that could happen, which is why you want to always be safe with the fireworks.
Didn't your family ask you maybe to go into the business of selling ties instead of this?
In the beginning, yes. My father definitely tried to push me in another direction, but I think he could see that it was truly my passion, and there was nothing that was going to stop me from moving forward in this industry.
You have insurance like Lloyd's of London? Are you taken care of?
Oh, actually, believe it or not, I do have Lloyd's of London specifically. They are one of the biggest, and they are one of the only people that cover on a larger level the pyrotechnic industry.
I'm well aware of Lloyd's of London. I have been involved with them before in my lifetime. So, what's it cost to do an arrangement for July 4th?
Typically, the municipal displays these days are averaging around $15,000 to $20,000 for your average 4th of July display. That's not to say that any other time of year it would be that expensive. It's just with all the surging of needing to rent equipment, to find drivers, to find all the shooters and the crew to put on the displays, it costs more that time of year, around the 4th, unfortunately. But
Okay.
I would say the average show now is ranging around $20,000.
The average show for what? 7,000 people or 20,000 people or 11 people? What?
Well, it depends. Larger municipalities might go with a $50,000 or $60,000 show. Like when you're trying to reach that 50,000, when you have a huge park or a giant municipality or city that you're trying to reach, it might be a larger venue. Smaller towns might have a budget closer to $7,000 to $10,000 for a small town. So it could be anywhere between maybe $5,000 and $50,000 for a 4th of July type display.
Well, I'll tell you, it was really interesting speaking to you, Patrick. I have, now that I've listened to you, I haven't the foggiest damned idea what it is. Now that I've listened, what do you do with all the stuff that falls down? If it's in an ocean or in a stadium, it's a lot of residue. What do you do with all that stuff?
So in a stadium, we use what's called zero debris fireworks. So it doesn't have any debris that comes down from it. So that way, when the spectators are looking up, their eyes are safe. They don't have to worry about anything coming down into their eyes at the end. As far as the larger fireworks, though, that we use for 4th of July displays, that does have fallout. All the cardboard casings that encase the fireworks go up, explode, and will then fall back down to the ground. They're more or less biodegradable, so they will just naturally go back to the earth eventually.
Well, it just sounds nice. It sounds like a little flower market talking to you. But I genuinely enjoyed it. And thank you very, very much, Patrick, for speaking to me. I look forward to a July 4th and maybe some of your stuff somewhere. Thank you, honey.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
77 WABC presents Overnight Odyssey. Tales of the Bizarre.